Hello and welcome to this week's Design Challenge with Garsington. We have got wonderful Paul Carr, who's the stage manager with us this week, and we're looking at Verdi's Falstaff. Now, the character of Falstaff, I would say, is kind of a lovable rogue, a bit like Toad in Wind of the Willows, if you want to imagine him like that, and he definitely needs to learn a lesson or two. And here's a picture of Falstaff in a basket. You can see this is Garsington Opera's previous production, and we'll explain a little bit more about why he's in that basket and what's going on later. And that takes me on to this week's design challenge, and we are going to explore stage management, and this is the best production, I think, to do that on, with Paul Carr, who was a stage manager at Garsington Opera on this production. Hello, Paul.
Hello, Karen.
Great to have you with us. So you are a composer, a director and a stage manager.
I am. I've been a stage manager for 35 years, long years.
On many productions. We've got a picture of you here at Garsington, at Old Garsington, where we used to be as a stage manager. Tell us about what's going on in this wonderful picture.
Well, that's actually backstage, and that was a production of Die Schweigsame Frau by Richard Strauss. And that's a picture of me in the middle, obviously, with two lovely ladies from the chorus in very fanciful costumes.
Look at those incredible feather headdresses. We've got another shot of you here in action. What's going on here?
Okay, that's actually me cueing a show backstage at the Hackney Empire, The Marriage of Figaro.
And you've mentioned queuing, and we're definitely going to come back to explore queuing a show later on. Now, you worked on the production of Falstaff, and I'm imagining it was quite a good production to work on from a stage management point of view. So tell us about that, was it?
Well, it certainly was in this production because it's quite a technical show. A lot of scene changes, a lot of things going on. So I was certainly kept very, very busy.
And was it just you on the stage management team?
No, there are three of us. Me, the stage manager, the deputy stage manager, or show caller, which I think is a much better title, and then the assistant stage manager. So there were three of us.
Okay, so there's three roles, and would you be able to take us through those roles? I think we'd start with stage manager.
Yeah, so stage manager, I'm basically in overall charge of everything that happens on the stage. I talk to singers, I deal with the director, I deal with designers, I deal with all the technical aspects. I'm basically the center point for everything that goes on that stage. It's a very enjoyable position. Then you have the deputy stage manager, or I think the better word is a show caller, because their job is to call the show, do all the queuing. And it's basically being the pilot of a plane. So the deputy stage manager or show caller is flying that plane in the sense that they are doing all the cues. They call the singers and artists, technical staff to the stage through an intercom system, and then they give all the technical cues over headsets to the various different sections of the theatre: lighting, sound, the stage crew. And that's on a fun show like Falstaff, which was busy, that's a really fun thing to do. And then you have the assistant stage manager, which is where you normally start off in this profession, who looks after the props, furniture, anything that a singer might hold, like a fan or luggage. And you also do some queuing from time to time, which can also be great fun.
I know we're going to come back to queuing later, and it's really interesting to hear in a bit more detail about those three roles that some of us might want to take on. On the production of Falstaff, where you were stage manager, let's get some backstage gossip from you to really find out what that job's like. What was the scariest thing for you when you were doing that job?
On a production like this, which is very technical, I had lots of moving bits of scenery. There were several performances where things did go wrong, and there's nothing wrong. Things do occasionally go wrong. And on one occasion, we had a train, a lovely cutout of a train in the station scene that crossed the stage, and I used to actually operate the smoke on that with a little remote controller. Puff of smoke coming out the top of the chimney. Audience loved it. And when the train exited, it would go off stage left, and it would sit in between a small gap by a staircase. In the following scene, the staircase then got pushed on when we went into Ford's house. And on one performance, I think it was about performance 4, when the staircase came back on for the next scene, it got caught on the back of the train and it brought the train back on stage. Much hilarity from the audience and all the cast members. But you think, no, this shouldn't be happening. But, you know, that's live theatre, isn't it?
And to show you, we've got a picture, haven't we, of the staircase. So you can see the staircase as it should be. It obviously does not have a train in that picture. So you can imagine how funny it was having an actual train on stage at the same time. And I think audience love moments like that, don't they? Was there anything else in the production that you can remember that was just happened to do with the stage management of the show that was really, really funny?
I actually think it might have been the same performance. The balustrade on the staircase, like the railings on the stair, were stuck on very cleverly with magnets. And they were fine so long as nobody touched them. But if you touched them, they could very easily fall off. And there was one performance when Yvonne Howard was singing Mistress Quickly, and she had to exit down the staircase, and she got a rather large skirt, and she got stuck on the balustrade. And I can see her now looking at me thinking, what do I do? And I said, just pick it up and bring it off. So she just picked up the balustrade and walked off with it.
So then you've got a staircase without a balustrade and a performer folding it.
Very funny. It was entertaining. It made me laugh.
So Paul, I showed a picture of Falstaff in the basket earlier. What was going on there?
Well, the basket is a wonderful prop. It's a very heavy prop. And Falstaff actually hides in it at one point and ends up being thrown into the river. A trapdoor opened in the stage and out he shoots into the river. But actually it reminds me of another story, his entrance in the scene when he comes in, he rings a doorbell, and I used to be on the opposite side of the stage where the balustrade is, and on this particular performance, because Yvonne Howard had got stuck on the balustrade and I was mildly hysterical, I missed Falstaff ringing the front doorbell. So he's there pushing the doorbell and nothing happened. And I could see it out the corner of my eye. He was looking at me going, are you going to ring it? So he did it again, and I rang the doorbell a little bit late. But because of Yvonne Howard and the balustrade, I then forgot to stop ringing it. And he took his finger off the doorbell and it kept on ringing. Mildly hysterical for everyone.
And is this production, was it quite a physical production? Was it physically challenging as a stage manager?
It was. I mean, often at Garsington, I've been involved with scene changes just because, well, I enjoy it, and you know, there's not a huge amount of stage staff sometimes. But on this production, because it was very technical, we had more jobs that needed doing in scene changes than we had actually technical stage staff. And so I opted for opening. There's a very large trapdoor at the back of the stage, very heavy trapdoor that was in most queues operated by 2 crew guys. But on this one queue, when Mr. Strictly had to make an entrance up a staircase from underneath, I opted to operate the trapdoor, which was fine in performances because I only had to do it once. But come rehearsals, it was quite exhausting. And I used to have to really get all my strength to do this cue. And when the cue came on my headset for the trapdoor to open, I had to lift a very heavy pole, lift this door right open so that Yvonne could make her entrance. And that was, but I was only doing it once in a show, and that was fine. It was in the rehearsal period that, you know, I could seldom walk to my car at the end of a rehearsal.
I find it fascinating hearing these stories because as an audience member, when you're watching a production, whether it's on television or in stage, you just have no idea what's going on behind the scenes. So you're really giving us an insight into that. And of course, often things like this would be controlled with hydraulics, and this wasn't. This was a real kind of physical thing that was going on.
It's like good old-fashioned theatre in a way, actually. And generally things don't go wrong, but occasionally they do. So I sound like things go wrong all the time. They don't, but can be quite fun when they do.
So Paul, we've got a clip from Garsington's production of one of the scene changes, and I'd love you to talk us through it because you've really unlocked what's happening backstage, and I wondered if you could talk along to this.
The very end, when Falstaff's going to exit, he takes off his underpants because he's wearing a kilt, and traditionally you shouldn't wear a kilt with underpants. And he exits. Everyone is standing by for the scene change, which happens without music. There's a lighting change, members of the chorus coming on to take off the furniture. And if you look at the back, you can see the backdrop is scrolling. So the backdrop is now changing. It's now changing picture. The furniture goes off. The doorway is flying out. Then in a minute, you're going to see 2 stage trucks from either side of the stage coming on. There comes the front door on stage right. or stage left as you're looking at the picture. And here comes the infamous stair truck coming from stage left. And once that's in position, chorus come on and set furniture. There's a fly cue. You can see the chandeliers flying in. Bits of furniture being set. This is all done without music. This is an old-fashioned slimming machine that has been brought on. There's a pot plant, chair, table. And now here comes Alice Ford, who gets into her machine. So once the scene was set, I cued her on. And once she's there, the music starts and we start the next scene.
You talked earlier about a deputy stage manager, a DSM. Could you just unpick that role a bit more for us? Because that person is obviously sat like we saw you with cans on, cueing the show.
Yes.
So I'd love to know how that works.
Yeah, so the DSM would be all these cues, and everything you saw then in the film happens at various points, and the DSM would cue them one after the other. So once the stage had been cleared for the previous scene, she would then cue the backdrop to start changing. So this is all cued on headsets to technical staff who are all wearing headsets. So the cue would come for the backdrop to change, the cue would come for the two side trucks to come on, then the cue would come for the chandeliers to fly in, and then when that's set, I would be cued by her to send on the artists.
And I know you haven't got an example of your cueing score, your music with the cues in, because that would be in a library and we're in lockdown. But we worked on a production recently, didn't we, together, Silver Birch, and you're going to show us one of those scenes where it's quite a lot happening, just so we can see how that works technically.
Yeah. I just want to show how a score is laid out. So this would be a page of standby cues. So you can see the SB, and that means standby. Then you've got LX, so you'd be standing by LX cues 48 to 50. LX means lighting. And then you've got SD cues, which means sound. So standby sound cues 1 to 3. Standby fly cues, which is anything that comes in from above. Fly cues 7 and 8. Standby the flaming barrels, which in this production was sent on by crew members. And standby a truck move, which was the side wall moving, which was pushed by members of the crew. And this is quite a busy queuing section, so you give a lot of standbys. And as the DSM would say, stand by these cues, everyone on the other end who has to do these cues would say, LX standing by, sound standing by, fly standing by, crew standing by.
So much happening. Let's look at the next page.
If you go to the next page, I was following the score. When I got to this moment, I would say, LXQ 48, go, flaming barrels, go, sound Q1, go, LXQ 49 and fly Q7, go. And you've got sound Q2, go. Next page, LXQ 50, go, fly Q8, go, sound Q3, go, truck move, go. So that's a lot of cues in a very short space of time. And that's when it becomes exciting, because you have to really concentrate, and when it all happens at the right time, it's thrilling.
And I notice you're using the score there, the music. Do you need, as a deputy stage manager or stage manager,
I think everyone who works in stage management, particularly the DSM, you need to be able to read music. I mean, you wouldn't fly a plane if you didn't know what all the controls did, would you? So no. It's basically the same. It's basically the same thing in queuing a show. Because otherwise you can't follow it, especially when you've got passages that are just music without any vocal lines. And
I know, talking of flying, I know that Falstaff in this production flies, and we've got a picture of Falstaff flying. Here he is in the air. And would that have been cued? How did that work in this production?
Yeah, so Falstaff had a quick costume change, and under his tunic, he had gone into a proper physical harness, and then there would be a line would drop in that's got it's a steel cable attached to a winch, to an electric winch, but masquerading as an old-fashioned Hessian rope. And I remember the chorus. It was one guy on the chorus. His sole job was to attach the clip, the clasp, the steel clasp, to the pickup on the harness, and then he would give me. He used to tap him on the shoulder, which was my signal to then relate back to the DSM, the person calling the show, that the cable was safely attached. And then on cue, the crew guys would be given the go, and the motor would start, and he would be winched up. But obviously, health and safety has to take precedence here, because you're flying a real person, 8 meters in the air.
The complexity of all of this is really interesting, isn't it? That we can watch something and the slickness of it takes lots of rehearsal, and you have to really, really think about all the detail to get it looking that easy. And if you want to be a stage manager, I'm sure you've inspired a lot of us to explore this more. What do you think you need to do? How do you become a stage manager?
When I started in the 80s, I literally applied to English National Opera for a job, and I got a job, even though I hadn't done a training course. I got a job as an assistant stage manager for 2 years. Then I worked up to DSM for a year, and then I went to Australia to become stage manager in the Sydney Opera House, and that was quite a challenging jump. But today there are so many courses, wonderful courses, technical theatre courses, specialising in stage management, either in drama or in musical theatre or in opera, or all three. And that's now the road down which most students go.
And you're also a composer and a director. So is being a stage manager a path into some of those careers as well?
I think often it can be. It doesn't have to be. It just depends what you want. I probably should have gone into directing a lot earlier. I've been directing for about 8 to 10 years now. But I've loved being a stage manager. But I'm going to be 60 next year, and I just don't want to do it anymore because I've been doing it a long time. So directing has now overtaken that path, and I've been writing music for a long time, and in later years that's also now taken over my career as a stage manager.
Well, you clearly have a huge amount of talent, and it's really interesting to hear about the stage management side of what you do. If you could sum up for us in kind of 3 things about a stage manager, what are the qualities you'd need to be a stage manager? What are they?
Well, I think you have to absolutely be able to get on with people, from singers, conductors, directors, technical staff, because on a production, on the rehearsal period, on stage especially, and in the rehearsal room, you are the focal point that everybody comes to if things need sorting out. You need to, I think, as a stage manager, as the top position, you need to have a sense of authority, but I think it always has to be done in a very nice way. You want to get the best out of people.
And lastly, I would say the thing that I noticed as well is you do need to be able to read music. So definitely keep going in your music lessons, and there's all sorts of careers out there for you. Thank you so much for being with us today, Paul, and really unlocking that mystery world that we didn't know very much about before. And it's been such a delight to talk to you today.
And you too, as always. Thank you, Karen.
We'll see you all for Monday Motivation, Falstaff at 10 a.m. Thank you. Bye.